who founded Nubian Skin. And I think the best way to sort of encapsulate what her brand represents is a quote from Ade Hassan. So she said, "My nude isn't the nude I see in shops. Despite the reality that women of colour have the same needs as all women when it comes to lingerie and hosiery and spend the same with their hard-earned money, the industry simply doesn't cater to us." So she thought she'd kind of change the game, and that's what she's done. I think I'll leave it to Ade to explore how she's got to where she is, what's inspired her, what some of the challenges have been along the way. And as you listen, please do think of some questions to ask her, because I will be asking you to ask questions, so have one in mind. Great, let's welcome Ade to the stage.
Thank you for that introduction, and a big thank you to Dennis and London College of Fashion for having me. It's really an honour to be here and get to speak to all of you. As Rochelle mentioned, I'm Ade Hassan. I'm the founder of Nubian Skin. And I think for some of you in the room, finding a nude pair of tights or a nude bra, or maybe even a nude dress is something that's very, very easy. But for a lot of women of colour, so black women, Asian women, mixed race women, etc., it's something that's been a problem, and I created Nubian Skin to help fix that. Before I get ahead of myself, I'll rewind a little bit. Around 5 years ago, I was working a corporate job on a consulting project which I hated, with a manager who had taken a strong disliking to me. I was bored, frustrated, and unhappy, but all of these things are an excellent motivator when you're trying to figure out what you want to do next. The truth was, I'd always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew I wanted it to be in fashion, but I didn't want to do clothing. And I had a few ideas that I'd been working on, but nothing was sticking. And after years of being annoyed of never being able to find the right pair of tights in my colour, or asking for a nude bra and somebody handing me something which might as well have been neon green because it didn't match my skin tone, I decided that this was an idea that could work. And I remember I shot off a text to one of my best friends saying, "I figured out what I want to do when I grow up." And that was the start. I realized pretty quickly that I was going to need to save some serious money. So I decided to leave consulting and go back into finance, which was something that I'd done previously. So by the end of that year, I had a swanky new job in finance, bought myself an iPad, I bought myself some lovely designer dresses, some great shoes, and I thought, you know, it's fine, I've got a few years to save money. My mum, on the other hand, never forgot that I told her about this idea, and she was very, very keen to get her hands on some tights that fit her colour. So let's move ahead another year to 2012, and that was the year of the Olympics, so I was in New York for work. And I shared the idea with my close friend Mira, and she thought it was brilliant. And I remember having a conversation with my friend Chris then, talking about how hard it was to save money, and she was not very sympathetic. She invited me over to the apartment that she was staying at the time, which belonged to one of her old bosses. And she showed me this woman's walk-in closet, which was the most ridiculous walk-in closet you can imagine. And the pinnacle was this shoe wardrobe, which had like rows of Louboutins and, you know, Jimmy choos, etc. And then Chris slams the door in my face and says, "You're never going to have that." And I was like, why would anybody do that? And she was like, "You don't save, so you're not going to have that, and you're not going to be able to start a business." That was the kick that I needed to get serious about saving. I returned to London later that summer with a renewed vigour about Nubian Skin, but work became hectic, and my mum kept telling me, you're not focused on this, what's happening with the business? And I let her know that I was very busy with work. In May 2013, I received a late birthday card from my friend Mira, and across the front it said, "It's time to start living the life you've always imagined." Inside was a really lovely message about how she thought my idea was amazing and how one day she hoped to see my picture on Forbes magazine. The next day, I registered the company and applied for the trademark and started reaching out to manufacturers. From that moment on, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I slept with a notebook beside my bed because I'd wake up at 3 a.m. with different ideas about colours or the photo shoot that I wanted. And I felt like I'd become obsessed, but it was wonderful. And with that came my first major hurdle. Not one manufacturer that I reached out to came back to me. Nobody was really interested in doing something for a small company that was looking at doing a niche product. They were hard enough to find in the first place and almost impossible to contact. As someone who didn't have a background in fashion, because my background was very corporate, it wasn't in the fashion industry at all, and I definitely had no leads in the lingerie industry, I realized pretty quickly that I was going to need some expert knowledge. So I found a consultant via Google who specialized in the lingerie industry. I drew up a confidentiality agreement because I was really protected about my idea and met up with her to discuss it. To this day, I think the money that I spent on the consultant, which seemed like a lot of the time, was the best thing that I've ever done and the best money that I've ever spent. She suggested that I go to a big lingerie trade show and I'd be sure to meet manufacturers, and she was right, I did. All of a sudden, my idea went from being in my head to something that was going to become a reality. I won't bore you with all the details about the research and development and coming up with the colours, but it's pretty amazing to see something that's been in your head come to life. Fast forward a few more months and I'd just come back from visiting China, and if you are if you're going to be producing anywhere, I definitely suggest visiting, first of all to check on your product, but also just from an ethical perspective, because I think that's incredibly important. And then I started focusing on a photo shoot, because at this point I planned for Nubian Skin to only be in e-commerce. And once I knew what I wanted to do, pick the models, it was an amazing, amazing, amazing shoot. And I have to say, that brings me to my first point. Make sure your imagery is top-notch. It's the first thing anybody's going to see about your brand, so you have to make it count. And that doesn't mean you need to spend lots of money, because I didn't. It was me, a photographer, a makeup artist, our models, and an intern. I did all the styling myself, but the images were everything. After the shoot, that's when interesting things began to happen. I had no marketing budget, and I didn't have a marketing plan, and that's something that's a very bad idea, so I do not recommend anybody starting a business that way. In hindsight, I have no idea how I actually thought people would hear about the business. But I had an Instagram account, which had about 50 followers, mostly friends, and I had a Twitter account, which had 10 followers, again, mostly friends. After the photo shoot, I put an image of the 4 girls in our lingerie on Instagram, and I went off on a week's holiday. About halfway through the holiday, my phone started buzzing incessantly, and I looked at Instagram and I had 100 followers. Now for me, that was a massive, massive deal. 100 people cared about my product. By the end of the holiday, we had 1,000 followers, and in 4 weeks, we had 20,000. I couldn't look at my phone or open an email without getting butterflies in my stomach. The image had gone viral, and that's the image up there. I didn't really understand what going viral meant until that happened. One morning I wake up and BuzzFeed had done an article about our brand saying we were redefining nude. Then The Independent and the Mail Online sent emails asking us for high-resolution images and credits. Then Tandy Newton tweeted about us, and Kerry Washington retweeted an article about us, and our followers kept growing. This leads me to point 2, get the word out. I don't have a formula for it, because for me it honestly feels like it happened by magic. But make sure people are talking about your idea. We don't advertise because we can't afford to, but social media is an amazing leveler. I couldn't have paid for the publicity that Twitter and Instagram gave us, so please use them. Lack of experience isn't really an excuse, because I didn't have an Instagram account or a Twitter account before I started Nubian Skin. And you don't need to pay somebody to manage it for you, because at first I was doing it all myself. Now, all of this happened in August and early September of 2014, and we didn't actually have a product yet, and our e-commerce site wasn't live, but it was just a blog, and we kept people updated on what was happening. We sort of were teasing them with more images and more details about what we were going to do. Then one morning, I wake up, and I open my email, and there's an email from the head of buying at ASOS for women's wear. At that point, I didn't really grasp how important it was until I started speaking to people in the industry. And all of a sudden, I had to rethink my strategy about only being direct to consumer. So I had to think about my pricing structure, what it meant to supply wholesale, how that fit into what I was planning on doing, and what it meant to supply in bulk. The best piece of advice that I could give anybody who's trying to get into retailers is to think big and be professional. And to do that, I honestly think attending trade shows is paramount. I would argue that spending money on advertising and PR shouldn't even be a thought if you can't afford to go to a trade show. If you're trying to convince retailers, both big and small, that they should be investing into your brand, then you need to show that you're legit and serious about your business. And the way to do that is to get alongside the big boys. Our first trade show was at Salon International de la Lingerie in Paris. We didn't have any appointments, but we were there. It was a relatively quiet moment, and two ladies walked up to the stand. And at that point, I was pretty bored, and so I started talking, just monologuing about the brand, not really paying attention. And then I stopped myself and I said, "I'm so sorry, I'm really rude. You have American accents, where are you from?" At that point, they told me that they were the intimate apparel buyers from Nordstrom. My stomach dropped. Now, I don't know if you've heard about Nordstrom, but Nordstrom is basically like the John Lewis of, or slightly even better, of the US. And in 6 months, we were in their stores, and that changed the game for us. It meant that people were seeing us as a real player in the market. And I never let on that we were tiny, that we were a 2-person team, although now we have an intern, so we're 3. And I said yes to everything. And then later went on to figure out what exactly that meant. Which again, I won't necessarily say going with that speed with things, but it is important if there is an opportunity to go after it and seize it. Working with retailers is really tough. They take a long time to pay, and they're really hard on you. But they can alter the sustainability of your business significantly. Now, before you think that we've gained all of our stockists by them approaching us, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Which brings me to my final point, which is chase what you want. It's very unlikely that retailers will approach you, so you need to approach them and use any resources available to you to track down who the buyers are. Ask them for a meeting, send an email, introduce your brand, just get on their radar. And it's fine if they say no, just keep approaching them season after season after season. If you have contacts who have stopped with a retailer who you might be interested in, don't be shy about asking for email addresses. And let them know that you're going to be at a trade show if you think they're going to be there. If you have a showroom, or ask if you can come in for a meeting. If you can afford it, agents and distributors can be effective, but I would definitely reiterate that anything you can do by yourself, try it, and try and save money, because that will really help you down in the long run. So I think I've taken enough of your time, but I'll reiterate my advice. Killer imagery, get the word out, and use social media to your advantage. Think big and be professional, and finally, chase what you want. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that. I know I was very inspired by that, and I have about...
Thank you very much for that. Really, really warm welcome, and thanks for your applause as well from you. Okay, can you hear me now? I would turn around and say that's because of my age, as I've already been called a veteran already. In a nice way. Thank you for that really kind introduction, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Avis Charles, and I am the CEO of Avis Charles Associates. We're a strategic fashion consultancy which works with designers to help them to develop the creative direction of their brands. I'm also the founder of Kivu, which is a company that produces really beautiful scarves, which the profits go towards a charity that we support called Women for Women International. As your final speaker today, I hope it's not because I'm the eldest here. And let's just hope it's because I've actually got a long history in the fashion industry. I will really try not to bore you. So I'm always amazed at the glowing introductions that I get before I come on stage that I sometimes receive. And yet in my heart, it sounds as if I've accomplished a lot, but to me, I don't kind of feel as if I have. I think it's because the fashion industry, there is always so much going on, and there's always so much to learn. And even at my young age, I still feel that I still have a lot to learn. And listening to the students and also listening to Ade as well, I really do applaud you for what you're doing, because I know how hard this industry, I seriously know how hard this industry is. However, there isn't anything else I would do in the world than be in this particular industry. The industry consists of so many pieces and layers that are meshed together, that people create brands. And we have an emotive connection to the things that we buy. It seems so easy for us to go out and spend our money, without a second thought. And that's basically what branding and what Ade's been doing as well, and what you'll all be doing in regards to when you want people to come to you. So let me take a step back, and in fact it was 46 years ago when I attended London College of Fashion. LCF was then, and it still is now, one of the best fashion universities in the world. I'm not biased, it's actually true. It's really assisted in laying the foundation for the career that I have today. However, before that, the scene was set by my mother and father, who came over from Jamaica in the 50s to build a new life in England. My mother was an English teacher who, in her spare time, made dresses for friends and family, whilst my father was a tailor who ran his own business. It was my wonderful parents that really taught me the appreciation of fashion in all its sizes, thus giving me a career and a business that is challenging, wonderful, stressful, fun, sometimes financially unstable, but really it's worth the investment, and both monetary and personally. Dennis names this presentation How to Work with High-Profile Designers and Stay Relevant. So I'll try and stick to the point. Well, the first thing is that most designers require you to sign a non-disclosure agreement, so I won't give away any secrets tonight. But let's be clear, all designers are aiming to be recognised as high-profile. So personally, I work with them to reach this goal by staying focused on the work that I have been requested to do. Regardless of whether the individual is a celebrity, an emerging designer, or the creative director of a luxury brand, I need to be a valuable asset to them by bringing expertise, creativity, professionalism, and an attitude to achieve the best work. It's really easy to get carried away with the fact that you're working with somebody that's famous or with a well-known brand. However, you need to realise that you are there to work, and that it's not about making a name for yourself. This will happen naturally anyway. As long as you are brilliant at what you do, referrals and recognition come along anyway. Our business doesn't advertise at all. Every single bit of business that we have had has been by referral. In fact, working with high-profile designers is more about you than it is about them. You need to focus on raising your game consistently by being on top of what is happening in the industry, putting the designer and the brand first, but without compromising your integrity, and whilst doing this, ensuring that there is mutual respect at all times. And that is actually quite important, because if you're working with somebody that's well known, sometimes you may feel that you have to bow to everything that they say. I'm not one of those people. It's surprising I still actually have a business. Look at yourself as if you are developing a new product. Plan your journey strategically, as if you were writing a business plan. When I'm told, opposed to ask my parents about going into the fashion industry, they kind of raise their eyebrows and their voices actually, explaining that this was neither a real job or a secure future. You need to understand something. I'm the youngest of 7 children. I'm born in England. Unlike my siblings who were born in Jamaica, who were graduates, a lawyer and engineers, so fashion was kind of not on their radar. My mother and father practically lost their mind, but anyway, here I am. I can still hear myself saying to my father, "But Dad, you're a tailor." And he said, "Yes, and I work all the hours around the clock, and I don't want that for you." I understand that now, and I still work all the hours around the clock. but that's what it is. Anyway, after much insistence on my part, they agreed to help me plan my fashion future. I will never forget their words. Start at the top with the best and stay there. I'm saying the same thing to you this evening. My profile is out there so you can read it, basically. So I'm not going to spend the time now telling you all about me, because I really feel that this is about you. It is important for you to become your own brand. In other words, develop yourself as if you are building a brand. I'd like to give you 6 tips to consider. Be imaginative, like a Christian Dior. Building a strong brand starts with building a strong vision of who you are. It entails creating your own world in which you extricate the unique, distinctive relationship between how you approach business associates and how you want to satisfy their needs, ambitions, and aspirations. A good appreciation of how you interact will form the basis for a strong philosophy that ultimately will become your signature. Be creative, like a John Galliano. A constant flow of innovative propositions is the strongest way to make your philosophy tangible. This requires an open mind and a willingness to experiment with many different kinds of mediums, such as movies, books, fabrics, techniques, cultures, social media, and much, much more. Never stop searching for the new and the not yet done in order to break existing conventions and paradigms. This place can only be reached if you are willing to be standing out in the crowd. Be original, like a Coco Chanel. It is crucial to be recognizable in a competitive market. The only way to achieve this is to stay true to yourself, using your own philosophy as a starting point to innovate. You have to challenge yourself to keep your originality, as this is what provides you with a unique and distinctive market position. Be evolutionary, like an Alexander McQueen. Remaining inspired is a challenge that asks for continuous renewal of yourself. By being capable of observing what is going on and understanding the relevant drivers of change, you will anticipate and come up with new, inspiring propositions that will fit the actual needs, ambitions, and aspirations of whomever you're working with. Be committed, like a Giorgio Armani. Building enduring business relationships is a valuable asset for you to have. Approach every opportunity and job as if it's your life's work, and put all your efforts, passion, and perfectionism into it. This makes it clear to all that you're here to stay. Be inspiring. I'll leave you to feel the same. Never forget where you have come from, and as you grow in stature, remember to lift as you rise. This means lift others as you are rising to the top. I don't have masses of pearls of wisdom. However, my life has taught me to be civil and measured to everyone, regardless of their background or how much money they have. I've been prepared to pick up pins, make the tea, sweep the studio. Don't laugh, there were actually hoovers around in my day, and I know what a Dyson is. These things were part of my training. And yeah, I can hear you say, oh, hell no. But you know what? I said exactly the same thing at first. Picking up pins without a magnet makes your fingers really agile. And it's a great asset when you're actually sewing really intricate details. And yes, it saves money buying more pins. Making the tea, look, the fashion industry can become really, really thirsty work. And unfortunately, gin and tonic isn't the usual beverage in the studio. Well, not before lunchtime anyway. Sweeping the studio. Until now, I cannot work in my studio unless it is spotless, which means I have no worries about getting any marks on any expensive fabrics. Why was I prepared to do all this? Simple. Because I had a plan. I already knew that I would be one of the best couturiers in the world, and that I would work with the most talented people in the industry. And frankly, I was prepared to do anything to reach that goal. I moved effortlessly from rundown studios in the East End to royal residence, celebrity homes, events without missing a beat. I speak at the World Economic Forum, World Bank conferences, business women's seminars in Pakistan, sit on government boards, address artisans from Papua New Guinea, Ethiopia, Mongolia, Peru, South Africa. I mentor young adults, and the list goes on. I can do all this because I have decided never to stop learning, contributing, or being relevant. Today, I'm a global citizen with choices, and not. Regardless of how I am described and by whom, I am, and I will always be, Avis Charles, the daughter of amazing parents who believed in my dream and allowed me to pursue my vision. To my daughter, however, I'm just the old dressmaker that hasn't finished her alterations yet, but you know what? That's good. Ladies and gentlemen, I leave you with the words of a humble man and great leader, Nelson Mandela. A winner is a dreamer who never gives up. I wish you all a great future and a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Wow, that's all I can say. Wow. Thank you very, very much for your words of wisdom, for your inspiration, and your tips, and your everything. That was just amazing. I'm sure you guys would agree.